Ambassador Han Ji-woo stared at the brown liquid in her cup and wondered if it qualified as a war crime. The cafe on the Galactic Council station advertised it as coffee, but she had her doubts. 3 weeks of negotiations with the Centauri delegates had left her exhausted, and now she faced another diplomatic crisis before she could even return to Earth. She took a sip, anyway. It tasted like burnt rubber mixed with sadness. The station orbited Axis Prime, a neutral world that served as the meeting ground for hundreds of alien species. Through the massive windows, she could see ships coming and going, each one representing a different civilization. Some looked like crystalline flowers. Others resembled chunks of living metal. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 40 years ago, and sometimes Ji-woo still felt like they were the new students at school, trying to figure out where to sit at lunch. "Ambassador, they're ready for you," said Lee Taejin, her military attaché. He stood near the cafe entrance, his posture relaxed, but his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Old habits from his days as a Marine never really died. Ji-woo had specifically requested him for this assignment because Taejin understood something most diplomats didn't. Sometimes peace required the threat of violence. She drained the terrible coffee and stood up. Her dark blue diplomatic uniform felt too tight after weeks of station food. "What's the situation?" "The Vorath delegation arrived an hour ago. They brought 12 warships." Taejin's voice remained calm, but Ji-woo caught the tension in his jaw. "Council protocol allows 3 escorts, maximum." Of course they did. Ji-woo straightened her jacket and headed toward the council chambers. Other species moved out of her way in the corridors. Humans had a reputation. Most aliens came from worlds with reasonable gravity, comfortable temperatures, and predictable weather. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. A planet so hostile that the fact humans evolved there at all amazed xenobiologists across the galaxy. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in a circle around a central platform. Hundreds of species gathered here to argue, trade, and occasionally threaten each other. Today, the room felt tense. Many seats were empty. Apparently, word had spread about the Vorath arrival, and the smart delegates had found reasons to be elsewhere. Ji-woo took her seat in the human section. Beside her, Choi Mina fidgeted nervously. The young junior diplomat had only been on the station for 3 months. "Ambassador, is it true the Vorath eat other species?" "Only on special occasions," Ji-woo replied dryly. She pulled up her data pad and reviewed the intelligence reports. The Vorath Empire had conquered 17 systems in the last decade. They were insectoid, standing over 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and mandibles that could crush steel. They viewed other species as either servants or food. Diplomacy, to them, was just a formality before the shooting started. The chamber doors opened with a hiss. 7 Vorath warriors entered, their exoskeletons gleaming under the lights. They moved with the confidence of apex predators who had never faced serious resistance. At their center walked Supreme War Delegate Thrak-Vel, his armor decorated with the skulls of species Ji-woo didn't recognize. Council Mediator Ix-Ilth, a being made of living crystal that reflected light in rainbow patterns, floated to the center platform. "We gather to discuss the Vorath Empire's request for territorial concessions in the Outer Rim. The human territories of..." "We are not here to discuss," Thrak-Vel interrupted, his voice translated by the station's computer into flat, emotionless English. "We are here to inform you of new realities. The human colonies in the frontier sectors now belong to the Vorath Empire. We will claim them within the month." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Several smaller species delegates fled their seats entirely. Ji-woo simply raised her hand, requesting permission to speak. Ix-Ilth's crystalline body flickered with what might have been relief or terror. "Ambassador Han has the floor." Ji-woo stood and walked calmly to the center platform, stopping exactly 5 meters from Thrak-Vel, the proper diplomatic distance for potentially hostile species. "Supreme War Delegate, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. Those colonies are inhabited by human citizens. We don't surrender our people. Thrakvel's mandibles clicked in what the translator interpreted as laughter. You are prey animals. Soft skin. Weak bones. Your species spent its evolution hiding in trees from real predators. Now you play at being a galactic power because you discovered faster than light travel. But you have no warrior tradition, no killer instinct. He leaned forward, and Jiwoo could smell something like sulfur and old meat. When we arrive at your colonies, your civilians will flee like frightened animals. This is nature's law. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, sensor, and psychic awareness focused on the small human woman facing the 7-foot insect warrior. Taejin shifted his weight, ready to intervene if needed. But Jiwoo raised one hand slightly. She had this handled. That's an interesting theory, she said, her voice carrying clearly in the silent room. Let me share some history with you. 20 years ago, Earth fought the Draxian Collective in the First Contact War. Are you familiar with the Draxians? One of the council members, a Draxian delegate, shifted uncomfortably. The Draxians were warrior species themselves, respected and feared across the galaxy. The war lasted 3 years, Jiwoo continued. In the Battle of Europa Station, 12,000 human defenders held off 80,000 Draxian soldiers for 6 months. The casualty ratio was 1 human to 14 Draxians. At the Battle of Mars, we deliberately vented an entire city district to vacuum to stop a Draxian advance, killing both our people and theirs. We made peace eventually, but only after we proved that conquering Earth would cost more than any victory was worth. She paused, letting that sink in. Before that, we spent 10,000 years fighting each other. World wars, nuclear weapons, biological warfare. We nearly destroyed our own planet twice. The Chinese Civil War killed 30 million people. The European Front War killed 50 million. We built weapons that could end all life on Earth, pointed them at ourselves, and somehow chose not to use them. Jiwoo's smile didn't reach her eyes. So when you call us prey animals, Delegate Thrakvel, I want you to understand something. Prey animals don't have words for genocide. We have several. The Vorath warrior stiffened. Several of his subordinates shifted their weight uncertainly. But Thrakvel's pride wouldn't let him back down. Words are wind. Your colonies will fall. Then I suppose we'll see. Jiwoo returned to her seat and picked up her datapad. Council Mediator Ixilth, I formally request a recess so I can consult with Earth Command about appropriate defensive measures. Granted, Ixilth said quickly, probably relieved to end the confrontation before it escalated further. As the chamber emptied, Mina leaned over to Jiwoo. That was amazing, Ambassador. You really put him in his place. Jiwoo didn't feel triumphant. She felt tired. I didn't put him anywhere, Mina. I gave him a warning he won't listen to. She glanced at Taejin, who was reading something on his communicator. His face had gone carefully blank. What is it? What? Vorath fleet movements, Taejin said quietly. Intelligence says they're moving assault carriers toward New Jeju. Population 40,000, mostly farming colonists. Minimal defense infrastructure. Jiwoo closed her eyes. New Jeju was where her cousin had moved with his family 5 years ago, seeking a quieter life after the chaos of Earth. How long until they arrive? 4 days at their current speed. She stood up and walked back toward the cafe. She needed another cup of terrible coffee while she figured out how to save 40,000 people from an empire that viewed them as livestock. Behind her, she heard Taejin activating encrypted channels, sending warnings to Earth Command. The diplomacy was over. Now came the hard part. The barista, a 6-tentacled being from Rigel, prepared her drink without being asked. Bad day, Ambassador? Getting worse by the minute, Jiwoo replied. She took the cup and found a seat by the window. 4 days away at faster-than-light speed, the Vorath fleet was coming for people who just wanted to grow crops and raise their children in peace. She sipped the terrible coffee and started making calls. 3 days passed like a slow nightmare. Jiwoo barely slept, spending her nights reviewing defense reports and coordinating evacuation plans for New Jeju. The colonists refused to leave. They had built lives there, planted crops, established schools. Where would they go? Every human colony was packed full already. Earth herself struggled with overcrowding after the climate wars had made vast regions uninhabitable. The council reconvened at dawn, station time. Jiwoo arrived early, nursing her fourth cup of awful coffee. Taejin stood beside her, and she noticed he wore his dress uniform today instead of civilian clothes. The message was clear. He wasn't here as a diplomatic attaché anymore. He was here as a soldier. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked quietly. 2 hours. About the same. Taejin's hand rested near his sidearm, a small plasma pistol that was technically against council regulations, but nobody had the courage to tell a human to disarm. Earth Command responded. Admiral Park is burning hard from the Sirius sector. 3 weeks minimum to reach New Jeju. The Vorath will be there in 20 hours. Jiwoo stared into her coffee like it might contain answers. It didn't. Just more terrible taste. The chamber filled slowly. More species attended today, drawn by rumors of the confrontation. Some came to support humanity. Most came to watch, the way people couldn't look away from accidents. The Vorath delegation arrived last, deliberately making everyone wait. Thrakvel looked pleased with himself. Ix-Ilth called the session to order. We gather to hear Earth's response to the Vorath territorial claims. Jiwoo walked to the center platform. She had prepared a speech, offering trade concessions, resource-sharing agreements, even a joint research program. 30 years of her diplomatic career had taught her that most conflicts could be solved with patience and creative solutions. She opened her mouth to begin the first offer. Then Thrakvel activated a holographic display. It showed New Jeju from orbit, green and peaceful. The image zoomed to show colonists working in fields, children playing near a school, families eating dinner together. These are your people, Ambassador Han. Soft, weak, undefended. His mandibles clicked. In 20 hours, they will learn what happens when prey animals wander into predator territory. Something changed in Jiwoo's expression. Taejin, who had served with her during the Centauri negotiations, recognized it immediately. He took 3 steps backward without thinking. Mina looked confused until she saw Taejin's face, then she moved too. Excuse me, Jiwoo said calmly. Council mediator? I request a 15-minute recess to consult with my government. Granted. Ix-Ilth seemed relieved by the delay. Jiwoo didn't go to the communication center. She went to the cafe, ordered 4 shots of the station's terrible coffee, and sat alone by the window. Taejin watched from a distance but didn't approach. Mina hadn't learned that lesson yet. She sat down across from Jiwoo. Ambassador, I have some ideas about compromise positions we could offer. My brother died at Terra Station, Jiwoo said quietly, still staring out the window. During the Draxian War. Junho was 22. Engineering officer. His ship got hit by a kinetic missile, and he had 14 minutes to evacuate the crew before the reactor breached. He got everyone out. Everyone except himself. They gave him a medal. Posthumously. Mina fell silent. After the funeral, I decided to become a diplomat. I thought if I was good enough at talking, maybe I could prevent more brothers, more sisters, more families from getting destroyed. Jiwoo finished her coffee. I've spent 30 years talking, compromising, finding middle ground. And you know what? It works. Most of the time. Most species are reasonable once you understand what they want. She stood up, and Mina saw something in her eyes that made her uncomfortable. But some species aren't reasonable, Mina. Some species only understand one language. The Vorath have conquered 17 civilizations. How many brothers and sisters do you think died on those worlds? How many families? Nah, but if we could just offer them something valuable enough. They don't want trade goods, Mina. They want to see us beg. They want to prove we're prey. Jiwoo walked back toward the council chamber. The time for talking is over. When the session resumed, Jiwoo didn't present her list of compromises. She stood in the center platform and looked directly at Thrakvel. The Vorath Empire has made its intentions clear. You plan to invade New Jeju colony in 20 hours. You view our people as livestock. You believe we are weak. We do not believe, Thrakvel replied. We know. Then let me educate you about Earth, delegate. My homeworld has a gravity 1.3 times what your species evolved under. Our atmosphere is corrosive to 70% of galactic species. We have storms that can level cities, earthquakes that crack continents, and diseases that can kill in hours. Humans evolved by surviving all of that. She paused. You call us prey animals. But on Earth, there are no prey animals, only survivors. More words. Thrakvel waved a dismissive hand. Your colonies have no military. Every human colony has military. Jiwoo interrupted. We're all military. Every farmer who can shoot. Every teacher who knows first aid. Every child who has practiced emergency drills. That's what it means to come from a death world. We don't have the luxury of civilians. She pulled up her own holographic display. It showed Earth's history. Battlefields, bunkers, soldiers. This is the Battle of Stalingrad. One city. 20 million casualties. Both sides fought until they ran out of bullets. Then they used knives. Then rocks. Then their bare hands. Another image. This is Hiroshima. We built bombs that turn entire cities to ash. We used them on ourselves. Another image. This is the climate war evacuation. We abandoned half our planet and fought over what remained. 2 billion people died. Ajon. 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 The council chamber was absolutely silent. Several delegates had turned off their translators, not wanting to hear more. So yes, Delegate Thrakvel. Our colonists on New Jeju are farmers. They grow wheat and raise children and want peaceful lives. But they remember where they came from. They remember what their species is capable of when pushed. Jiwoo's voice remained steady. If you attack New Jeju, you will take it eventually. Your fleet is strong, and our colony is weak, but the cost will be higher than you imagine. And then our ships will come. Your ships are 3 weeks away. We verified this. Admiral Park's fleet is 3 weeks away, Jiwoo agreed. But we have others. And when they arrive, you'll learn something your empire forgot during your 17 easy conquests. You'll learn what happens when predators hunt something that fights back. Thrakvel stood. The Vorath Empire does not fear human threats. We will take New Jeju. Then we will take your other colonies. Eventually, we will take Earth herself. This is the natural order. Jiwoo pulled out her datapad and pressed several buttons. Then I formally declared diplomatic negotiations failed. I invoke Protocol Delta under the Galactic Charter for armed response. Ixilth's crystalline body flashed bright red. Ambassador Han, Protocol Delta is only invoked in cases of imminent existential threat. 40,000 humans are about to be attacked by an invasion force. That qualifies. Jiwoo turned to leave, then looked back at Thrakvel. One more thing. Delegate. You showed us images of our colonists. Children playing. Families eating. You meant to demonstrate how vulnerable they are. But you made a mistake. You reminded us what we're protecting. She walked out of the chamber with Taejin following close behind. Once they reached the corridor, Mina caught up. What's Protocol Delta? I didn't see it in any of our diplomatic manuals. That's because it's not a diplomatic protocol, Taejin explained. It's military code for unrestricted warfare. The ambassador just declared war. Mina looked shocked. But she can't do that. Only Earth's assembly can declare war. In cases of immediate threat to human lives, a diplomatic representative has emergency authority, Jiwoo said, not stopping her walk. I'll deal with the political consequences later. Right now, I need to coordinate with our defense forces on New Jeju. They reached the human diplomatic offices. Inside, communication equipment covered every surface. Jiwoo activated the quantum link to New Jeju. After a moment's delay, a woman's face appeared. She looked tired, but alert. This is Defense Coordinator Kim Yuna. Ambassador Han, we received your warning. The Vorath fleet will be here in 19 hours. What's your status? We've evacuated everyone to the underground shelters. The old mining tunnels go deep, hundreds of kilometers. They're designed to withstand the planet's storm seasons, so they should hold up to orbital bombardment for a while. We have supplies for maybe 2 weeks. Yuna's expression hardened. And we have weapons, not military grade, but we've modified mining lasers, construction equipment, fabricated some explosives from fertilizer. If they send ground troops, we'll make them regret it. You're a retired soldier, Jiwoo said. It wasn't a question. Earth Defense Force Major, retired 5 years ago. Came here because I was tired of fighting. Yuna smiled grimly. Guess fighting came to find me anyway. Ramda. Admiral Park is 3 weeks out. Then we hold for 3 weeks. Yuna looked away from the camera. My daughter Hae-yoon is here. She's 16. I promised her she'd grow up somewhere safe. She looked back. Make them pay for this, Ambassador. We will, Jiwoo promised. She ended the transmission and immediately opened channels to every human ship within 10 light years. This is Ambassador Han Jiwoo, transmitting on all human networks. New Jeju colony is under imminent attack. All UESS vessels. I am invoking emergency defense protocols. Converge on New Jeju. This is not a drill. Taejin pulled up fleet positions on a tactical display. Closest ship is the destroyer. Gwangju. Captain Ryu commanding. 8 days out. After that, the carrier, Busan. 10 days. If Admiral Park burns maximum speed, she'll be there in 18 days, Jiwoo said quietly. Against an invasion fleet. Mina's voice was small. With mining, equipment, and fertilizer bombs. Jiwoo looked at the young diplomat. You asked me once why humans are classified as Deathworlders. This is why. We don't quit. We don't surrender. We fight with whatever we have for as long as we can. She sat down heavily. Now comes the hardest part. We wait. The Vorath fleet arrived at New Jeju exactly on schedule. 12 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and immediately began orbital bombardment. Jiwoo watched it happen from the council station, 300 light-years away, via the delayed data feeds from the colony's satellites. Each explosion on the surface felt like a knife in her chest. They're targeting the settlements, Taejin reported, his voice clinical. Population centers, agricultural processing facilities, power generation. Standard invasion doctrine. Make life impossible on the surface. Force surrender. The colonists are in the tunnels, Mina said, more to convince herself than anyone else. They're safe underground. Then, quote, Jiwoo didn't respond. She had been awake for 40 hours straight, watching the disaster unfold in slow motion. Coffee couldn't help anymore. She just felt hollow. On New Jeju, Kim Yuna stood in the command shelter 3 kilometers underground. The walls shook with each orbital strike, dust falling from the ceiling. Around her, 40,000 colonists huddled in spaces designed for mining operations. Families clustered together. Children cried. The elderly prayed. How long can the surface structures hold? Yuna asked her deputy, a former engineer named Park Tae-young. They're already gone. The Vorath are using plasma bombardment. Everything above ground is burning. Tae-young checked his displays. But the tunnel entrances are holding. Tae-young, 1/10/2024. Tae-young. The blast doors are military grade, rated for nuclear strikes. We have time. Time for what? Someone shouted from the crowd. To sit here and wait to die? Yuna turned to face her people. She saw fear, desperation, anger. Good. She could work with anger. We're not waiting to die. We're waiting for our ships to arrive. Admiral Park is coming. Until then, we fight. Fight with what? Another voice. We're farmers, not soldiers. You're humans, Yuna replied firmly. That's enough. Everyone with military or security experience, come with me. Everyone else, help Taeyang organize the shelters. Ration the food and water. Comfort the children. We're going to be here a while. 70 people followed Yuna to a side chamber that now served as their armory. Modified mining lasers sat in racks next to improvised explosives. Construction mechs had been rigged with welding torches and hydraulic claws. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. They'll send ground troops soon, Yuna said. They want prisoners, specimens to study, proof of their conquest. So we're going to teach them a lesson about Deathworlders. She pulled up a map of the tunnel system. The main entrance here is obvious. They'll hit it first. Park Jiho, you're former Marines, right? A graying man nodded. 20 years, ma'am. Take 15 people and make that entrance a killing field. I don't care if they bring 1,000 troops. Make them pay for every meter. The next day, the Vorath came. Dropships descended through the smoke and fire, landing near the main tunnel entrance. 300 soldiers emerged, their armor gleaming, their weapons ready. Squad leader Vixtar led the assault team. This was his 9th planetary conquest. They all went the same way. Orbital bombardment, ground invasion, quick surrender. He expected the humans to wave white flags and plead for mercy. Instead, the tunnel entrance exploded outward. The blast caught the first wave of Vorath soldiers completely by surprise, killing 20 instantly. Before Vixtar could react, modified mining lasers opened fire from hidden positions. The beams cut through armor like paper. More soldiers fell. Take cover. Return fire. Vixtar dove behind a destroyed dropship. This wasn't supposed to happen. These were civilians. Farmers. But they fought like trained soldiers. Command. We need reinforcements at the main entrance. Heavy resistance. Back on the council station, Jiwoo received updates every 6 hours as the data packets arrived from New Jeju. The news wasn't good. The Vorath had landed 3,000 troops. The colonists held the tunnel entrances, but barely. Casualties mounted on both sides. They're using children as runners, Taejin said quietly, reading the latest report. Moving supplies and messages through the tunnels. The Vorath keep trying to collapse the entrances, but the colonists repair them faster than they can destroy them. Jiwoo's hands shook as she held her coffee cup. She barely tasted it anymore. How long have they been holding? 72 hours. The Gwangju is still 5 days out. Admiral Park is 15 days away. They can't hold for 15 days. Not against 3,000 Vorath troops. They don't have a choice. Taejin put a hand on her shoulder. Neither do we. All we can do is make sure help arrives. On New Jeju, a girl named Kim Hae-yoon ran through the tunnels carrying medical supplies. She was 16 years old and terrified, but her mother needed these supplies at the forward position. Her mother needed her to be brave. So she ran. The tunnels shook constantly now, sometimes from Vorath bombardment, sometimes from human explosives. She had learned to tell the difference. She passed families huddled in side chambers, saw wounded being treated with dwindling medical supplies, heard prayers in a dozen languages. She reached the forward position where her mother commanded the defense. The tunnel widened into a natural cavern here. Park Jiho's team had turned it into a fortress. Barricades made from mining equipment. Weapons positioned at choke points. Wounded soldiers being treated by combat medic An Jisoo. Mom. Hae-yoon handed over the supplies. More medicine from the main shelter. Jisoo said to use it carefully. We're running low. Yuna hugged her daughter briefly. Good girl. Now get back to safety. I can help here. I can load weapons, carry ammunition. No. Yuna's voice was firm. Your job is to stay alive. When the ships arrive, someone needs to tell them what happened here. Someone needs to remember. Before Heyun could argue, alarms blared. Vorath troops incoming. East Tunnel. Multiple contacts. Yuna pushed her daughter toward the rear exit. Go. Now! Then she grabbed a mining laser and joined her defenders at the barricades. The Vorath came in a wave. Dozens of armored soldiers firing plasma rifles. The humans met them with everything they had. Mining lasers burned through alien armor. Improvised explosives detonated in the narrow tunnels, the confined space magnifying their effect. A modified construction mech grabbed a Vorath soldier and threw him into 3 others. Vixtar led the assault personally now. He had lost half his force in 3 days of fighting. These humans should have surrendered after the first hour. Instead, they fought harder with each passing moment. They booby-trapped every corridor, ambushed from hidden side passages, used the darkness and confined spaces to their advantage. They're insane, one of his soldiers hissed over the radio. They know they can't win. Why don't they surrender? Because they're Deathworlders, Vixtar replied, finally understanding. He had dismissed the warnings about humanity's origins. He wouldn't make that mistake again. If he survived this, days became a blur. The humans held the main tunnels. The Vorath controlled the surface. Neither side could claim victory. Casualties mounted. Supplies dwindled. Still, the fighting continued. Jiwoo watched the reports come in. New Jeju was bleeding. 800 colonists dead. 2,000 wounded. The Vorath had lost over 1,000 soldiers. The orbital bombardment continued, turning the planet's surface into a hellscape. The Gwangju arrives in 6 hours, Taejin reported. 1 destroyer won't be enough to break the Vorath fleet. But Captain Ryu says she'll buy time. 1 ship against 12. Jiwoo closed her eyes. She'll die. She knows. She's doing it anyway. The Galactic Council had fallen silent about the New Jeju situation. Most species didn't understand why the humans kept fighting. Some suggested surrender might be merciful at this point. The few who understood Deathworld psychology knew better. Humans would fight until they won, or until they were extinct. There was no middle ground. On the 7th day, the Vorath leadership made a decision. They brought their flagship into low orbit, a massive dreadnought called the Fist of Dominion. It was designed to crack planets. 1 shot from its main weapon could penetrate to the mantle, causing earthquakes that would collapse every tunnel system on New Jeju. They're going to destroy the whole planet, Taeyang said, watching the dreadnought power up its weapons. They'd rather kill everyone than admit defeat. Yuna gathered her people. 40,000 humans, now reduced to 38,000. Dirty, exhausted, wounded, but unbroken. If this is the end, we go out fighting. No surrenders. No mercy. We show them what it costs to attack humans. Heyun held her mother's hand. She wasn't crying anymore. She had cried all her tears days ago. Now she just felt tired. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetie. I'm sorry I couldn't keep you safe. You did keep me safe. For 16 years. That's more than a lot of humans get. The alarms changed tone. Different pattern. Taeyang looked at his sensors, and his eyes went wide. Ships. Multiple contacts, dropping out of FTL. Yuna grabbed the display. It's too early. The Gwangju shouldn't be here for 3 more hours. It's not the Gwangju, Taeyang said, and his voice broke with emotion. It's Admiral Park. The entire fleet. They burned their drives to maximum. They nearly tore their ships apart getting here. But they're here. On the council station, 300 light-years away, Jiwoo received the message. She had been standing by the window, watching the stars, preparing herself for the worst news possible. Instead, Taejin showed her his display. 17 human ships, emerging from faster-than-light, travel around New Jeju. Carriers, destroyers, frigates, and leading them, the UESS Indomitable, Admiral Park's flagship. The transmission came through. Admiral Park's face appeared on every display, broadcasted across all frequencies, so the Vorath couldn't miss it. This is Fleet Admiral Park Kiran of the United Earth Space Service. To the Vorath fleet threatening New Jeju. You wanted war. You have it. Weapons free. No prisoners. Jiwoo sank into her chair and finally let herself cry. Not from sadness. From relief. Her people had held. Against impossible odds, they had held long enough. On New Jeju, in the deep tunnels, 40,000 humans cheered. They had survived. Now came the reckoning. The human fleet materialized around New Jeju like avenging angels. 17 ships, their hulls still glowing from the brutal faster-than-light burn that had brought them here days ahead of schedule. Admiral Park Kiran stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, staring at the tactical display. 12 Vorath warships, 3,000 enemy troops on the surface, and somewhere below ground, 38,000 humans waiting for rescue. All ships, battle formation Delta, she ordered. Weapons free. Target their flagship first. The Fist of Dominion was massive, 3 times the size of any human vessel. Its main weapon was still charging to destroy the planet. Captain Ryu Daban of the destroyer Gwangju broke formation without waiting for orders. Admiral. The Gwangju requesting permission to engage the flagship directly. Admiral. Park knew what Ryu was asking. Destroyer versus Dreadnought was suicide, but it would buy time. Permission granted. Godspeed, Captain. Thank you, ma'am. Ryu turned to her crew. All hands. This is the captain. We're going to ram their flagship. I'm giving you 30 seconds to reach the escape pods. Anyone who doesn't want to come along, I won't blame you. Nobody moved. Her weapons officer, Lee Jun, smiled grimly. With respect, Captain. Shut up and fly. The Gwangju accelerated to full burn, diving straight at the Fist of Dominion. Vorath point defense systems opened fire, but Ryu weaved through the barrage with skill born from 20 years of combat experience. The destroyer took hits. Armor melted. Hull plates cracked. But she kept coming. 15 seconds to impact, the navigator shouted. All crew to escape pods now. Eject the pods, Ryu ordered. The entire crew compartment detached, firing away from the ship. Ryu stayed at the helm alone, steering her ship manually. The Gwangju struck the Fist of Dominion at full speed. The destroyer's engines detonated on impact, tearing a hole through the dreadnought's armor. The flagship's weapon systems went offline. Its main gun would never fire. Admiral Park watched the explosion and said a quiet prayer for Captain Ryu's crew. The escape pods were already being recovered by the Indomitable. All hands accounted for, including one stubborn captain who had ejected at the last possible second. Target destroyed, the tactical officer reported. Vorath flagship is crippled. Good. Now show them what happens when they threaten our people. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for decades. The human fleet, smaller and less powerful on paper, tore through the Vorath warships with brutal efficiency. They didn't fight with honor or according to established rules of engagement. They fought like humans had always fought. Viciously, intelligently, without mercy. Fighter squadrons led by Ace Kang Sojin destroyed the Vorath bombardment platforms that had been shelling New Jeju's surface. Colonists should be safe from orbital strikes now. Acknowledged. Proceed to ground support operations. On the planet's surface, the Vorath troops watched their fleet die. Squad leader Vixtar received the retreat order, but knew it was too late. Human dropships were already descending through the smoke. These weren't colonists with improvised weapons. These were Marines. Colonel Seo Jiho led the ground assault personally. His unit hit the Vorath positions like a hammer. These soldiers had trained their entire lives for this moment. They moved with precision, covering each other, using combined arms tactics that the Vorath had never encountered before. 3rd platoon, flank left. 2nd platoon, suppressing fire. 1st platoon, straight up the middle. Jiho watched his tactical display as his troops advanced. Artillery support on grid coordinates, Echo 7-3. Shells rained from orbit, precisely targeted to avoid human positions. The Vorath lines crumbled. Those who tried to surrender found themselves facing angry Marines who had seen what the bombardment had done to the colony. Some accepted the surrender, others didn't. In the tunnels, Yuna heard human voices calling down from above. Friendlies approaching. Is anyone alive down there? She climbed up to the surface for the first time in 8 days. The world had changed. Everything was burning. The sky was black with smoke, but standing among the ruins were soldiers in UESS armor, their weapons still hot from combat. One of them removed his helmet. Yuna recognized Colonel Jiho immediately. They had served together during the Draxian War, 20 years ago. Commander, Yuna. Good to see you're still alive. Good to see you too, Colonel. Welcome to New Jeju. Sorry about the mess. Jiho looked around at the devastation. You held this position for 8 days against 3,000 Vorath with mining equipment and improvised explosives. That's not a mess, Commander. That's a miracle. We lost 2,000 people and saved 38,000. Take the win. Jiho gestured to his troops. Get these civilians evacuated to the ships. Medical teams, anyone wounded gets priority treatment. Engineers, start damage assessment on the tunnel systems. Yuna found her daughter among the survivors being led to safety. Heyoon was dirty, exhausted, and had aged years in just 8 days. But she was alive. They were both alive. In orbit, the space battle concluded. Of the 12 Vorath warships, 8 were destroyed, 3 captured, and 1 escaped into faster-than-light travel. Badly damaged. The human fleet had taken damage but suffered no losses except the deliberately sacrificed Gwangju. Admiral Park contacted the captured Vorath commanders. This is Admiral Park Kiran. Your invasion failed. Your fleet is destroyed. I'm offering you 1 chance to surrender. If you refuse, I will destroy every ship you have, one by one, until none remain. The Vorath commander who replied was not Thrakvel. We surrender. Please, no more killing. Then power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with immediate destruction. Park ended the transmission and turned to her officers. Get medical teams to New Jeju. I want casualty reports within the hour. And someone get me a line to Ambassador Han. She'll want to know her people are safe. 300 light-years away, Ji-woo received the transmission while sitting in the council chamber. The Galactic Council had reconvened to discuss the New Jeju situation. Most species expected to hear about human defeat. Instead, they heard Admiral Park's report. New Jeju is secure. Vorath fleet destroyed or captured. Colonist casualties. 2,000 dead, 5,000 wounded. Enemy casualties. Approximately 2,000 dead, 800 captured. We are beginning rescue and recovery operations. The chamber fell silent. Thrakvel, who had been so confident 8 days ago, stared at the display in disbelief. Impossible. We sent our best fleet. 12 warships. 3,000 warriors. And we sent 17 ships with crews who fight for their families, Ji-woo replied quietly. You made the same mistake every predator makes, delegate. You assumed we were prey. But predator and prey are defined by circumstance, not species. You attacked our children. That changed the circumstances. She stood and walked to the center platform. The Vorath Empire will withdraw from all human territories immediately. You will pay reparations for the damage to New Jeju. Your border fleet will demilitarize within 100 light-years of human space. These terms are non-negotiable. The Empire will never agree to such humiliation. Then the Empire will cease to exist. Ji-woo's voice was cold. Admiral Park's fleet is currently refueling at New Jeju. From there, it's a short jump to your nearest colony world. Then the next one. Then the next. We'll dismantle your empire piece by piece until nothing remains but rubble and memories. Thrakvel looked around the chamber for support. He found none. The other species had seen what humans could do. Even those who disliked Earth wouldn't risk defending the Vorath now. How long do we have to respond? He asked finally. 48 hours. After that, we start removing your colonies ourselves. Jiwoo returned to her seat. I suggest you use that time wisely. After the session ended, Taejin approached her with a datapad. Admiral Park's full report. Captain Ryu is being recommended for the Medal of Valor. All crew of the Gwangju are receiving commendations. Colonel Jiho's ground forces have begun rebuilding operations on New Jeju. The colonists want to stay. Despite everything, of course they do. It's their home. Jiwoo took the datapad, but didn't look at it. How many children did we lose? Taejin hesitated. 347. Ages ranging from 6 months to 17 years. Jiwoo closed her eyes. 347 families destroyed. 347 futures ended. Make sure their names are recorded. All of them. I want a memorial built on New Jeju. Something permanent. Already planned. The colonists are calling it the Stand Monument. To remember those who held when they should have fallen. Good. Jiwoo stood up slowly. Every bone in her body ached from days without sleep. I need to contact the families. Write letters. There are things they deserve to know about how their children died. Ambassador, you should rest first. You've been awake for. The families don't get to rest, Taejin. Neither do I. She headed toward the communication center. Not until every last letter is written. Away. See. Behind her, Mina watched in silence. She had learned more about diplomacy in the last 8 days than in her entire training. She had learned that sometimes talking wasn't enough. Sometimes you had to show your teeth. And sometimes, even when you won, it felt like losing. The cost of victory lay heavy on New Jeju. But the colony survived. The humans had held. And across the galaxy, every species that had dismissed humanity as weak prey reconsidered their assumptions. The Deathworlders had reminded everyone why they earned that classification. 2 weeks after the Battle of New Jeju, the Galactic Council Station felt different. Species that had previously dismissed humans now gave them a wider berth in the corridors. The human diplomatic offices, once a quiet backwater, now received visits from ambassadors of a dozen civilizations, seeking trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. Fear had a way of making allies. Jiwoo sat in her quarters, staring at a package that had arrived on the morning supply ship from Earth. Inside was real coffee. Actual Earth-grown beans from Colombia, roasted and ground specifically for her. A gift from the diplomatic corps. Recognizing her handling of the crisis, she opened the package and just smelled it for a moment. After weeks of the station's terrible excuse for coffee, this felt like coming home. Taejin knocked and entered without waiting for permission. They had moved past formalities. The Vorath have requested a peace summit. Their new supreme delegate, Krixan, is already on the station. New delegate? Jiwoo measured coffee into her personal brewer. What happened to Thrakvel? Thrak, recalled to their homeworld. Rumor is he's facing execution for the failed invasion. The Vorath Empire is in chaos. Multiple factions fighting for control. Some want revenge. Others want peace. Krixan represents the peace faction. How convenient for us. The coffee maker began brewing. The smell filled the room. Jiwoo closed her eyes and just enjoyed it for a moment. When does he want to meet? Greeting Rav. I would haben de Grumentarm. This afternoon. Council chamber. Full formal session. Taejin paused. There's something else. Admiral Park's fleet is conducting exercises along the Vorath border. Very visible exercises. With a lot of weapons testing. Jiwoo smiled slightly. Good. Let them see what they're dealing with. Nothing encourages peace like the visible alternative. The council chamber was packed when she arrived. Every species wanted to witness the negotiations between humans and Vorath. Some came to gloat. Others came to learn. A few came out of genuine concern for galactic stability. The Vorath Empire, for all its brutality, controlled significant territory. Its collapse could create dangerous power vacuums. Crixan entered with only 2 guards, a stark contrast to Thrakvel's aggressive posturing. He was older than the previous delegate. His exoskeleton marked with scars that suggested a long military career. He moved carefully, aware that any wrong gesture might be interpreted as hostile. Ixilth called the session to order. We gather to negotiate terms between the United Earth Government and the Vorath Empire following recent hostilities. Jiwoo stood and walked to the center platform. She carried a datapad and the cup of real coffee. She took a sip before speaking. The United Earth Government's terms are simple: complete withdrawal of all Vorath forces from within 100 light-years of human territory. Reparations for New Jeju Colony in the amount of 50 billion credits. Demilitarization of your border fleets. And formal recognition of humanity's sovereign territory as inviolate. Several species gasped at the severity of the terms. Crixan remained calm. Those terms would cripple the Empire. Our economy cannot sustain such reparations. Our military cannot demilitarize while facing internal rebellion. Then perhaps the Empire should have considered that before attacking a human colony. Jiwoo's voice was polite but firm. We didn't start this war. Delegate Crixan. We just finished it. I understand. And I do not defend the actions of my predecessor. Thrakvel was a fool who believed old propaganda about prey species. But punishing the Empire into collapse serves no one. There are innocent Vorath civilians who will suffer. There were innocent human civilians on New Jeju. Children. Families. They suffered anyway. Crixan bowed his head. You are right. I do not ask for mercy we did not show. I ask only for pragmatism. A collapsed Vorath Empire creates instability that will harm many species, including humanity. Perhaps we can negotiate terms that satisfy justice while maintaining stability. Jiwoo studied him carefully. Unlike Thrakvel, this Vorath wasn't posturing. He was negotiating sincerely. She respected that. I'll consider modifications. But first, I want to know something. Why did the Empire attack us? We had no previous conflicts. We weren't blocking your expansion. What did you hope to gain? Crixan hesitated, then spoke honestly. Thrakvel and his faction believed humanity was weak. Your diplomatic approach, your preference for negotiation, your small military, they saw opportunity. The Empire has expanded through conquest for 2 centuries. Each victory made us more confident. He looked directly at Jiwoo. We forgot that sometimes species choose peace, not from weakness but from wisdom. That's the most intelligent thing I've heard from a Vorath, Jiwoo said. She sat down in the center platform, an unusual move that made it less confrontational. Sit with me, delegate. Let's talk like people, instead of empires for a moment. Crixan carefully took a seat across from her. Up close, Jiwoo could see he was exhausted. The Empire's internal struggles were clearly taking their toll. She poured coffee from a thermos into a second cup and slid it across to him. This is coffee. A human drink. It's bitter and probably toxic to your biology. So don't actually drink it. But it's a gesture. Sharing what we have. Crixan looked at the cup curiously. Why offer this? Because I'm tired, delegate. I'm tired of war. I'm tired of writing letters to families who lost children. I'm tired of watching colonies burn. I spent 30 years trying to prevent conflicts. And in 8 days on New Jeju, we lost more people than in all my previous negotiations combined. She sipped her own coffee. I want peace. Real peace. Not just an absence of war, but actual stability. I want to try. But my position is weak. The military faction wants to continue the war. They argue that retreating will encourage other species to attack us. Then we need to make peace more attractive than war. Jiwoo pulled up her datapad. New terms. Reparations reduced to 20 billion credits. Paid over 10 years. That's manageable for your economy. Border demilitarization. But only of offensive weapons. You can keep defensive systems. Complete withdrawal from the disputed zones. But we'll help you relocate any Vorath civilians living there. Crixon's mandibles clicked in surprise. That's more generous than I expected. It's not generosity, it's pragmatism. I don't want to destroy the Vorath Empire. I want to turn it into a neighbor we can live with. She leaned forward. But understand this clearly. These terms are offered once. If you reject them, if your military faction decides to continue hostilities, we won't negotiate again. We'll simply destroy every Vorath military installation we encounter until the Empire sues for peace on any terms we dictate. I understand. Crixon stood and bowed formally. I will take these terms to my government. I believe they will accept. I will 10. Good. One more thing. Jiwoo finished her coffee. I want you to visit New Jeju. See what your empire did. Meet the survivors. Look at the memorial we're building for the dead. I don't ask this to shame you. I ask because leaders should understand the consequences of their decisions. Crixon was silent for a long moment. That will be difficult. But you're right. I will go. The formal session concluded with the modified terms being transmitted to the Vorath government. Outside the chamber, Mina caught up with Jiwoo. Ambassador. That was brilliant. You turned a potential ongoing war into a negotiated settlement. We'll see if it holds. Jiwoo headed toward the cafe. She wanted another cup of coffee in a place with windows where she could watch the stars. Peace isn't something you achieve once, Mina. It's something you maintain, constantly. The Vorath will test these terms. Other species will watch to see if we enforce them. The real work is just beginning. They reached the cafe, and Jiwoo was pleasantly surprised to find the barista had acquired actual Earth coffee beans. Apparently, the station's suppliers had noticed the increase in human traffic. She ordered a double espresso and found her usual seat by the window. Taejin joined her, carrying his own cup. Admiral Park's fleet is returning to regular patrol routes. New Jeju is being rebuilt. The colonists are refusing relocation offers. They want to stay. Of course they do. It's their home. You don't abandon home just because it got damaged. Jiwoo watched a transport ship dock at the station. Any word on casualties among the Vorath prisoners? Surprisingly few. Colonel Jiho's forces showed restraint despite what happened. The prisoners are being treated well. Some are asking for asylum, rather than return to the Empire. Grant it. Every Vorath who chooses peace over war weakens their military faction. She sipped her coffee, and finally let herself relax slightly. What about the families? The letters? All delivered. Most appreciated the personal touch. A few were angry. You didn't prevent the attack. That's understandable. It is. I should have seen it coming sooner. Should have moved forces into position faster. Ambassador, you did everything right. You warned the Vorath. You prepared the colony. You called the fleet. You saved 38,000 people, and lost 2,000. Jiwoo stared into her coffee. That's the part that keeps me awake at night. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Around them, the station bustled with activity. Aliens of 100 species going about their business. Trade deals being negotiated. Alliances being formed. Life continuing despite the chaos. A message came through on Jiwoo's datapad. She read it and smiled for the first time in weeks. It's from Kim Yuna on New Jeju. She says the colonists want to name their main settlement, Hans Hope, after me. That's quite an honor. I don't deserve it. The people who held those tunnels deserve it. The soldiers who died protecting them deserve it. She finished her coffee. But I'll accept it anyway. Because they need symbols of survival. They need to believe it was worth it. A week later, Crixon visited New Jeju as promised. He walked through the ruins with Yuna as his guide. She showed him the destroyed settlements, the cratered fields, the makeshift cemetery where 2,000 humans were buried. She introduced him to families who lost children, to wounded survivors, still recovering, to the memorial being built, with 347 names carved into black stone. These were farmers, Yuna said quietly. Teachers, engineers, children. They didn't want war. They just wanted to grow food and live peacefully. Crixan stood before the memorial for a long time. But I swear to you, Coordinator Yuna, that I will spend the rest of my life ensuring the Vorath Empire never makes this mistake again. See that you do. Yuna looked at the setting sun. New Jeju's star was orange, painting the sky in shades of amber. Yuna, Markan, because if you fail, there are 38,000 humans on this world who will remember. And millions more throughout human space. We don't forget. And we don't forgive easily. I understand. Good. Yuna offered her hand, a human gesture of peace. After a moment, Crixon took it carefully with one of his 4 hands. Then, let's build something better than war. Back on the council station, Jiwoo received word that the Vorath government had formally accepted the peace terms. The war was over. She allowed herself a small celebration. Real coffee, with real cream, a full night's sleep. A message to her family on Earth that she was safe and coming home soon. Ambassador Oh Sumin arrived to take over the long-term negotiations. She was older than Jiwoo, with gray hair and a reputation for patience. I hear you've had an eventful few weeks. That's one way to describe it. Jiwoo briefed her on the situation. The key players. The political dynamics. The Vorath peace faction is genuine, but weak. Support them without making it obvious. The military faction will try to restart hostilities within a year. Be ready. End quote. Juicy. End quote. Always am. Suman smiled. Earth Command offered you a promotion. Chief Diplomatic Officer. You'd be running the entire diplomatic corps. I heard. I turned it down. Why? You earned it. Because I don't want to run things from Earth. I want to be out here, at stations like this, talking to species like the Vorath before things explode into war. Jiwoo looked out at the stars. Someone has to keep trying for peace, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Fair enough. Where will you go next? Wherever they send me. There's always another crisis. Another species that doesn't understand humans. Another diplomat who needs help. She picked up her bag. But first, I'm going home. I'm going to sit in a real coffee shop in Seoul, drink properly made espresso, and remember why I do this job. And why do you do this job? Jiwoo thought about New Jeju, about the families rebuilding their lives, about the memorial with 347 names, about the peace that had been bought with blood and sacrifice. Because someone has to. Because talking is better than shooting. And because every once in a while, despite everything, it actually works. She left the station on the next earthbound transport. As the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, she looked back at the council station one last time. Somewhere out there, the Vorath Empire was changing. New Jeju was rebuilding. Admiral Park's fleet patrolled the borders, and across the galaxy, other species were learning a lesson that the Vorath had learned the hard way. Humans preferred coffee to war, preferred negotiation to violence, preferred peace to conflict. But if pushed, if threatened, if their families were endangered, they would fight with everything they had. They would fight until they won or until they died. Because that's what it meant to come from a death world. That's what it meant to be human. 6 months later, Jiwoo sat in a coffee shop in Seoul, watching rain fall on the Han River. Her next assignment was scheduled to begin in 2 weeks. Another station. Another crisis. Another chance to prevent war through words instead of weapons. She sipped her espresso and smiled. It was perfect. After everything, after all the terrible station coffee, and the sleepless nights, and the letters to grieving families, she had this moment. Peace. Real peace. At least for now. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Yuna on New Jeju. The first harvest since the war had been successful. The memorial was complete. Children were playing again in the rebuilt settlements. Life continued. Jiwoo replied with a simple message. Stay strong. We're watching over you. Then she ordered another espresso and watched the rain. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new negotiations. But today, in this moment, there was just coffee and rain and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. The galaxy was still dangerous. The Vorath were still unpredictable. War would come again someday. But not today. Today, there was peace. And that was worth fighting for.